So if you would please do those sign-ins in that survey, I would really, really appreciate it. Again, we have Amy Gaffney, and she's going to be talking about preparing for the holidays. And I just was making sure that everything was going absolutely. Lisa, I am going to turn this over to you, and then I am going to go out on Facebook Live and put that QR code for everyone out there. Again, if you would please go ahead and either click the link or we will be putting it back up whenever we are at the end of the presentation today. Welcome, Amy. Welcome, Lisa. And I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jill. So, thank you all for joining us on this cool November day. My name is Lisa Paddock, and I am the assistant to the director at InSource. And InSource is the Indiana's Resource Center for Families with Special Needs. We're the Parent Training and Information Center here in Indiana and have been for 50 years. We celebrated our 50th birthday. We've seen a lot of changes. And we want families to understand that we are here for them from the birth of their child all the way to the point that that child is now a young adult and is 26. So we are so happy that you joined us today. And we are very happy that we have Amy Gaffney here. Amy came last year and talked about preparing for the holidays for our kids and our students. And she came back a little earlier this year. We asked her back earlier to prepare before Thanksgiving, also, because a lot of times it does take time to um, put things in place, to get things organized. And Amy is with the Indiana Resource Center for Autism, and she travels all over the state assisting schools. She provides resources, and we are so fortunate to have her come and talk to us today about ways that we can support students during and children during the holidays. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Amy so that she can give us some practical ideas and things that we might be able to utilize and do to make the holidays a little less stressful if possible.
Yep.
Amy, you take it
Thank
away.
you. Thank you so much, Lisa. I appreciate, I'm going to share my screen as I'm starting here. I appreciate InSource and everything that InSource does. My family has benefited from InSource's services, and so I love anytime I can come and talk with everyone. And so as we were talking before the webinar even began, I said it is hard to believe that it's November already. Like time has just, oh, am I still sharing my screen? I lost my presentation.
Yes,
Okay.
I see it.
You see it? Okay.
Yes, I do.
Sorry, something went
No, that's right.
haywire on my end. There we go. There it's back. I probably could do the presentation from memory, but let's not try that. Okay. So, so it's already November. Time flies. So I don't know, some of you are watching this live right now. Welcome. Good afternoon. But then some people might see the recording of this video in, January or in March. And so we're going to really be talking about holidays all year round. So that at any time you can kind of be thinking about what you can do to best support your family. I know they always sneak up on us. So sometimes it's preparing for the holidays maybe a year in advance. Because I said I had a lot of plans for October, and now I'm looking to October 2026 for some ideas that maybe we can put into place next year. Like Lisa said, I am an educational consultant with the Indiana Resource Center for Autism, and I'm also a parent of a child with disabilities. So I look at this both from a professional side of things that I have learned after working in schools for 25 years with students with multiple, disabilities, but really including a lot of students with autism, as well as I'm a parent. And so I have to put some of these things into practice in our home as well. So to begin with, let's look at or think about why holidays can be so challenging for many families, many students, just many people in general. And so one thing we have to remember is that a holiday event, whether it's one day or whether it's a season sometimes, because some of our holidays are, quick, Labor Day is here one day and gone the next. But the Christmas holiday can last for multiple weeks sometimes, the whole month of December, right? And so it can really cause a change in routine. Whether that is a change in routine at school, it's a change in routine at home, it's a change in your decorations and what your home looks like, and the smells of the different holidays. So there's just lots of changes that are happening, and so for some that can be a challenge. Um, Unsure of when something's going to happen. So, a lot of times when we have holidays, it's a great opportunity to get together with friends and family, whether it is a Thanksgiving holiday, or it's Valentine's Day, or Thanksgiving, or the 4th of July. We are going to get together and we're going to do some different things. But that kind of means, oh, my schedule's off a little bit. When is that going to happen? What time? What time are we eating? Because I'm used to eating between 5 and 6 for dinner, but maybe we're going to a special dinner and that's not going to start till 6:30. So my time frames might be a little off or something. So we might have some insecurities about when something's going to happen. Also, it's hard when you don't know when something's going to happen and your routine has been changed. It's hard to predict what will happen. So it's hard for me to make a really good guess about, oh, I think this is what I'm going to anticipate. So, especially for young children, maybe you're going to do something different that they've never experienced before. And so when you say, hey, we're going to get together and we are going to go to this picnic for Labor Day, or we're going to go to a cookout for some, to celebrate something. Some of the kids, if they've never been before, well, what's a picnic? What's a cookout? What kind of food am I going to expect to eat? What kind of activities am I going to expect to do? There probably won't be presents, right? Because I'm really good at Christmas. I really love those holidays when we have presents and we have, decorations, but I don't see a lot of presents and decorations happening on Labor Day. So how am I celebrating that holiday? And what's that going to look like? So that can be a reason why the holidays, although they are great fun, they can also be a challenge for some people. We also want to think about all the sensory things that go into holidays. That's one of the wonderful things about holidays. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. And talk about sensory overload. Sometimes the smells, right? Especially of pine. You walk into some stores and I start sneezing my head off when I smell all the pine smells in the stores. But you think about those sensory overloads, whether it be sights, sounds, smells, textures, all the things that we want to add into our home when we go out into the stores, all of the background music if you're out in shopping, whether it be grocery stores, or I was in Starbucks this morning and they're playing Christmas music already, and so that can be some overload, some make some of those experiences a little more uncomfortable because of your sensory system and how you're processing everything. So keeping that in mind as to why that sensory challenges can happen over the holidays. And then there can be new people and different expectations, right? So we might be, I talked about, maybe you haven't been somewhere, you're going for the first time, you'll be meeting a lot of new people. What are the social expectations of that experience? We also want to think about just in the way that we celebrate things, in the way that we're doing it. As we get older, the social expectations for children versus teenagers versus adults can change during holidays. Thinking about Christmas, right? When you're little, you're going to be probably getting Christmas presents and things from your family. There might be lots of things to open, and then as you get older, there might be fewer things, but maybe they're a little bit bigger. Maybe they're a little bit more expensive, so we don't get quite as many gifts, but that number of gifts changes as the years go on. And then as an adult, maybe we stop exchanging gifts with each other. And so that's not an expectation anymore. And so we have to keep that in mind for some people who like things very consistent. They have certain expectations. This is the way that, this is what's comfortable for me. And if that's changing, we want to be able to prepare our loved ones for any of those changes. So we need to think about some strategies that can be helpful. So my goal for today is just to give you a lot of different ideas. I know that InSource records these webinars and they put them on their YouTube channel or on their website. And so this is great because you can go back through maybe when another holiday, it's maybe a little bit closer to a different holiday that you want some ideas for. You can go back and hopefully I've given you a couple of things that you can try. So the first tip that I have is to prepare early and visually. So making the unpredictable predictable for our loved ones, right? And so a lot of these tips are, really I'm focusing in on our children that we're supporting, but also this is like these are good for the whole family. These are like universal strategies that can really help all of your children in your household. Even the adults can benefit from these. So kind of keep that in mind, that what's good for one, even though we know, we might have a child who has some their own set of special needs, and we want to really make sure they are comfortable and that this can be successful. But what we do for them will also help their brother and their sister and their father and their mother and their grandma and their grandpa and any other family members that you have. All right, so the first tip that I have then is keeping it visual right early is put things on the calendar. Give kids visual reminders of what's coming, right? So sometimes that's planning it a whole month in advance, or that could be just planning it, a couple of weeks in advance, but giving them a little bit of warning so they can go back and be looking at those calendars. So, when it's August, a lot of our schools start here in Indiana in August. So we want to put down when is the first day of school so that when I look at the calendar on August 3rd, I know that the following week I can count how many days until my first day of school is coming. If there's a holiday, how many days until school's out and when Christmas break starts, or when are we going to go to grandma and grandpa's house for Thanksgiving? So we want to make sure we have lots of calendar reminders that we're putting out. However, one warning that I have on that is the amount of time or advanced warning that you give depends on your specific child's needs. So I have some kids that I know that need a month, 2 months in advance. I will share that my daughter, she likes to look at the calendar ahead of time. She'll flip between the months to see what's coming up the next month or how far in advance. So that can be really helpful for her to be prepared if she gets a lot of extra notice. But for some kids, that is anxiety producing. And so your child best. Maybe your child only needs a few days notice because you don't want them to be dwelling on this change that's coming, and that they will have trouble focusing at school because they'll be thinking so much about that special trip that's coming to celebrate the 4th of July weekend or something. And so we want to make sure that we can, in May, they can continue to think about school and not think about what they're going to be doing in July. So just know what your child's needs are, and you can decide how far in advance you want to start marking things on a calendar. Maybe have a countdown of some kind to let them know when something's coming. You want to make a plan with your family and friends. So thinking about talking about what activities and expectations you're going to have ahead of time, right? So if you are in a family who likes to play things by ear, sees how it goes, that can be challenging for some of us who have some children who need a lot more extra ahead of time planning. And so talking with your family and friends and saying, you know what, if we could just make just a general outline, that would be really helpful, so that we know what to bring. We have some time frame ideas in mind. Let's talk about some activities, maybe give us 3 options of what we can do. We don't have to have a perfect plan in place yet, but we need some kind of framework, because then I can help prepare my child as we are getting ready for this event. We want to respect, though, and plan for flexibility. So trying to keep those sleep times and that sleep routine, very similar mealtime self-care routines, as consistent as possible, can help with that buildup of the anxiety. Like, this event is coming. Maybe you're traveling for your holiday event. Maybe people are going to come to the house, and your kids are really excited because they're going to get to see their cousins that they haven't seen for a while. But that can cause disruptions in sleep. That can cause us to start, if we're not at school and we don't have our regular meal times because we're on a break, all of a sudden we start doing some grazing, some snacking, our meal times get off, and then kids start to get, whether they're hangry or they've had too much sugar or something's changed. Self-care routines can also be really helpful to, if they're consistent, that can kind of help you keep that excitement at a well-regulated level. So do the best you can with those routines. Even when you're away from home, trying to keep sleep routines similar, those meal times, expectations as similar as possible, self-care. If your child is always taking maybe a bath relaxes them before they go to bed, see if you can, maybe make that happen as well when you're out of town and you're not at home. So just thinking about keeping routines as similar as possible. And then making personal schedules. Schedules for kids are great. I'm a big fan of schedules all the time. I think everybody needs a schedule. I use a schedule as an adult all the time. And I think it's really helpful for our children to start when they're young. And a lot of our kids are using schedules at school. They can also be used at home. So you can use Google Images. You can just, you can make some really nice, handmade schedules. But this one is an example of one that a family did. They just keep it on their refrigerator. And so if you have, the example of this schedule is, students are out of school, right? Because it's Christmas break, but it's not quite Christmas Day yet. We have a few days ahead of time. So we're going to get up in the morning. We're going to go through our regular routine of having breakfast, taking our medication, brushing our teeth, getting dressed. But instead of going to school, we're going to go shopping for some Christmas gifts. So you can see on that schedule on the left side, there's a little Google image picture of a couple of bags, right? Shopping bags. And then when you get home, you can play after we've gone shopping for a little bit. We're going to have lunch. Then you're going to take your nap if that's a normal routine. Walk the dog, maybe have a snack when you get back from your walk. And then we're going to have some time as a family or, whoever's together to wrap some presents. That will start to say, hey, look, this is something different that's happening. Get the kids involved. If they're going to give a present to grandma and grandpa, how can they help to wrap it? Some of our younger kids, it might just be that their job is, sticking that tape on the present or sticking the bow on top. But how can they be involved so that when they hand that gift to their loved one, they'll understand that, hey, I was part of putting this together and I made this for you, and they can give that. So putting those moments, those activities you'd like your kids to do, those are different activities. They don't do that on a regular basis, but put that on the schedule to help them know what those expectations are. And then plan, if you notice, on both of the morning and afternoon for this child, after the two different holiday activities of shopping and gift wrapping, they have some playtime afterwards. So you give them something that they look forward to, something fun, something relaxing, because they have just done something that may or may not be a little different for them. And that can cause some regulation challenges at times. Here's some other ideas just for schedules. We can do like a first, next, then. So maybe you've got to run some errands. You can say, hey, first we're going to go to the bank, then we're going to go to the grocery store, then we're going to come back home. You can use, I like to go to the dollar store in the school section. They have those little pocket charts. And so those are great if you want to put some pictures on them for anything that your kids are going to need. Tape them up on I used painter's tape on this one. For a student that I was working with, we taped it up on the wall. This was a young man who did have some jobs that he did. He had basketball practice and things, but we can just change those cards out as needed. So you can be using that on days that are typical routines and days, especially those days when something's going to be different because of the holidays that are coming up. So then we need to think about what's the plan? How can we be prepared for this holiday event, right? So think about making some visual sequences of events that are coming. So maybe you are going to, before Christmas, you want to decorate your home. So whether nowadays, apparently the day after Halloween, November 1st is the day you decorate your house. It's getting earlier and earlier every day. I always thought it was supposed to be the weekend after Thanksgiving. But whenever you so choose to decorate your house for any holiday that you might be doing, give a visual sequence of the plan for your student, or for your child. So first we're going to put the tree up, then we're going to put some lights on the tree. We can put some ornaments on the tree, then we're going to fix some hot chocolate, and we'll sit down and we'll watch our favorite Christmas movie together. So this way they just know how long it's going to last, what activities should they be expected to do. We can also make little sequence of events, especially if you've got a reader. You can just write down what the expectations are for the day. And one of my tips that I give people is I like to use paint chips because one, the kids are not expecting you to hand them a paint chip with information on it. It's got a little bit of a texture to it, so it's kind of fun to hold the paint chips. I let kids go to the store. They can pick out they're for free, right? So go. Maybe you want to paint your bathroom or your living room someday, and you're looking at different paint colors. Have your kids pick a couple of extra paint chips of their favorite colors, just so that you would have them on hand in case you need them at home. But you can write down a little sequence of what is going to happen for the day. So you know what? Tomorrow is Thanksgiving, and we're going to drive to Grandma and Grandpa's house, and then we're going to say hello to our family. And these are the family members that we're going to see. Grandma and Grandpa and Auntie Mandy and Uncle Mike will be there. And we're going to eat dinner at the house. And then we're going to play some games for dinner or after dinner. So they know, like, oh, hey, I really want to play this game. When's that going to happen? It's going to happen after. Like, we're going to eat first. So you can write in whatever information will help your child to know what the sequence of events will be. Some other ideas would be pull out some photo books, or even if it's on your photos are on the iPad now, you can just swipe through. Just look at pictures of past holiday events. So activities you've done in the past. Talk about the feelings that some of those activities invoked, right? And so we might say, hey, look, everybody was laughing. Remember that was so funny, or that was so much fun, and everybody was so happy. Look at their faces. They're smiling. Or, oh, look, that's a tired face. Remember how tired you were afterwards? You might feel tired this time, this year. If you do, here's, you can lay down in the back of the car, or, put your head against the window in the car, or get a pillow or a blanket to take in the car. So that you can, have a little break or something if you're out and about for a while. Thinking about the people that you're going to see, right? How many of us have a great memory of those distant relatives that we only see maybe every 2 years or something? So at least get some familiarity of those faces that you're going to see coming up if you're going to a different holiday with people that you don't see on a regular basis. And then again, talking with your family, right? So some of our families don't see us very often, and it depends on your level of, comfort with your family as far as how much you share. But I do encourage you to think about, what do you need to explain to family members about your child's, autism, sensory needs, anything that they might have, communication needs, that you want them to know about ahead of time, so that everyone is comfortable and understands what those expectations are. So they won't think that it's surprising when your child gets up 5 minutes after you've all sat down for dinner and goes onto the couch to lay down or to play on their iPad or something. It's because it's already expected that 5 minutes is about all my child can tolerate as far as eating in a big group like that with all this unfamiliar food or something. So if they can just stay for 5 minutes, that's a win for us. And then because they excuse themselves very appropriately and things like that, here's the expectation, then they're going to go ahead and they're going to take a break while the rest of us enjoy the rest of the food. So just make sure your family is aware of everything that's going to be happening as well. You can involve your child in the planning, right? So give your child choices. What food should we bring to dinner? If it's everybody's contributing something, what do you think we should bring? What decorations should we use in our house? What do we want to wear, right? Sometimes we get really excited about something, and then we get home with it and we show our child, and they're not sharing our excitement. And that's happened to me on more than one occasion. So, maybe that's too big of a decoration, or they're overwhelmed by that. I don't want to put something up in my yard for Halloween that makes my kid, uncomfortable to walk around in the front yard. So we want to give them choices. And if they get excited, they're more likely to buy into all of the changes and the differences that might be happening during the holidays. We want to offer structured choices too. So not only are we just in general, what do you want to bring? What do you want to wear? But sometimes our kids need a little bit more of a limited amount of choices, right? So what would you like to bake? Cookies or would you like to bake the cookies, or do you want to help decorate? Like, I want you to be part of this experience, but I'm going to give you one part or the other part that you can do, but you got to pick one, right? Do you want to go to grandma's house before or after lunch? So just giving them some ability to make that schedule, choose some of the events and things that are happening, that can help them reduce their stress and anxiety. You want to let your child know which traditions are optional. It's okay to skip parts that are overwhelming sometimes. Holidays are a time for people to get together, share in experiences. Usually we want it to be a joyous time, a happy time, a fun time. And if we are constantly saying, oh, we have to do this, you have to do this, just because if you don't do this, then it's not the holiday. Sometimes some of our families, I'm saying this when I say the collective, all of us, our traditions change, and we might have different transitions than what the neighbor next door does. And that is okay, because we're both going to enjoy the holidays in our own ways. And so if it is something where your child, they're not ready for that, they will be someday. Maybe they're 6, and I tell you, life will be different when they're 15. We don't know what will happen, but this year might not be the year to worry about that one particular thing. They can sit that out. Everybody else can go and do it. Maybe a couple of you will stay back home, and then maybe in a few years they'll be ready to go out and look at the Christmas lights as well, or go and look at the Christmas trees. So just thinking about that some things might need to be optional, and that's okay. And encourage your child to express preferences or worries. So have those open conversations about, what would you rather do? What do you like? What do you think is fun, right? Or what are you worried about and concerned about? If you have a child who is one of those that is more of a people pleaser sometimes, and they're so uncomfortable, and you can tell by their body language they are so uncomfortable, but they want so badly to do the right thing, and they're so worried about that. That's not going to be a comfortable way to approach the event that you're going to. So have open conversations ahead of time. Let them know, you can tell me I need a break, and that's okay. And so you already have that planned, so they have kind of those outs or those moments where they can say, I need to take 10 minutes. Have a designated calm space for them to go when they do have those moments of overwhelm, right? So plan ahead for a time when or a space where maybe it's a back bedroom in grandma and grandpa's house, or in the aunt and uncle's house. Maybe there's a place where I can just go to get away for a little bit. I can listen to some music. I can read a book. Maybe you want to have a timer ready to go in that space. So you can say, hey, why don't we set the timer to 20 minutes? I'll come back and I'll check on you. But sometimes, it might be a place where they can lay down, or there might be a swing outside. That's a good place, for you to go and swing for a little bit. But just having that designated calm or reset space can be really helpful. You also want to think about some of the favorite things you want to pack. So we always have in our house, there's always a backpack of stuff ready to go, right? And I don't do that. My daughter's done that for years. She loves to pack a backpack. So pack a backpack of items that are going to be enjoyable, whether it's your favorite stuffed animals, your books, your pillows, your favorite blanket, whatever's, comforting from home if you're leaving home or something. So you have those comforting items on hand as needed. And then there's a lot of waiting that sometimes happens. So if you're going to go somewhere, you might be waiting in the car. If you're looking at Christmas lights, sometimes we're just sitting in the car ride, and, maybe they need a little something to do while they're in the car. Maybe we need some fidgets and things to be using in the car. Maybe we've gone to someone's house and not everyone is there yet. So we are just kind of starting to talk and get to know each other. But the big dinner, the big meal that's about to happen is not, it's not going to happen for another half hour or something, or we're waiting for another family to arrive. So what are those good waiting activities that are engaging for our children? They're calming, but they're also easy to transition away from. And so I say that because I've got a picture of an iPad there, but we know for some of our kids, iPads are really hard to put down sometimes. So that is not, and I wouldn't recommend that to be your good waiting activity because it's harder to separate from that. So maybe I get my iPad after dinner, right, later on, and maybe before dinner, I can do some kind of building with blocks, or I can read a story, or, it's something different that I might be able to do. We do want to consider, again, those, I talked about the sensory experiences, right? So think about the smells of the holidays. There's a lot of different food being prepared. People always like to try new recipes for the holidays. So you might be experiencing some new smells at times. And you or your child might need to step out for some fresh air sometimes, right? So thinking about taking some breaks, that being in the house, if I walk into any place that has a lot of perfume smells, flowery smells, with Easter, sometimes we have a lot of flowers, fresh flowers and things out. I'm thinking about, December holidays and just the cinnamon, and think about, and Thanksgiving, you've got nutmeg comes to mind, all these smells and spices and things. And we just might need a break from those at times. On the flip side, if you really like those smells and your child really likes them, go for it. Have some, if that's a calming and enjoyable smell, put those out in your house, right? That can set the tone or set the mood, right, for the holiday season. So that can be a good thing and a bad thing. Think about sounds. Bring headphones or earbuds if your kids need that for music. You might be going into a place where there's a lot of people talking with lots of different conversations going, and it can be overwhelming. And if you can't really get away somewhere, maybe the kids can just put some music on and sit maybe off to the corner or something. But it's a way to kind of drown out that for a minute. But then it's also really helpful to identify a quiet space to go. It's also really hard communication wise for some kids and for some adults as well. So I'm talking, I talk about kids, but really any age this is applicable to, where a lot of times just having so much talking going on can cognitively be challenging because you're trying to listen to conversation, you're trying to figure out what conversation to follow. And so if you have any kind of hearing impairment or just anything that's going on, you want to have a quiet place where you can talk. So maybe thinking about if you see any of your loved ones or any friends or anybody that you're kind of noticing is struggling with keeping up with the conversation, maybe you can kind of move them over and say, hey, you want to come with me to get a drink, and maybe you can go into the kitchen or something that's a little quieter at the moment and find a quiet space to have that conversation. And then looking at the environment too. So we know sensory wise, that's all of our senses, right? And sight is one of them. And so whether or not we're looking at pictures of where we're about to go, so we know what those sites are going to be. So it's not like, and we're not surprised when we see some things. You might need to visit a few times before the big event. So if you're going to, go to another family's house for a party or something where there's going to be multiple, people there, and it's kind of a bigger deal because it's a celebration, maybe you can go one or two times just, to stop in, say hello. If you know the family well, you can say, hey, we'd love to come over just when it's a little quieter before the party. So, so Sally can just kind of get comfortable in your living room, just know what it looks like. Or could you send me a picture of your living room? So she'd like to see that before we come over. I think that's a very realistic, question that you can ask for people. If also thinking about slowly maybe making environmental changes to your home. So sometimes, we blink, I feel like, and then all of a sudden Christmas has exploded in our living room, right? So we might need some slower changes with some of our kids, depending on how they react to things. And then always identifying a safe place to hang out, right? So if you have a lot of people coming to your house, it's perfectly fine for your child to want to be up in their room, and if they need a quiet place away from things. It's perfectly acceptable for them to maybe not want people in their room or in their space because that makes them uncomfortable, right? Because they feel like, I have my room all set up. So a lot of people, you're always like, come on, come see, come see the house, come see, my child's room. There might be some places where your child's like, I would prefer not to have a lot of people in my room right now. So just talk about that ahead of time so it's not awkward for anybody during the visit. We also want to think about all those sensory things with sound. So one of my examples, and this is a personal one for me, I am not a big fan of fireworks outside. And I think it's just for a long time. I really enjoy watching them on TV. There's something, it's a tradition of mine, but I also think it's probably some kind of, there's some sensory things happening there too. So maybe your family tradition is you watch fireworks, you watch the Macy's 4th of July fireworks on TV. And that's something that you guys can enjoy, and just know there's other ways to feel like you've gotten a taste of the holiday. So think outside the box sometimes, and we can do a lot with videos and TV and things like that. All right, another, as we're going through like sensory ideas and things, but this is more than just sensory. I mean, it is sensory, but there's a lot that goes into food, right? Holidays are built around food. We all have our favorite foods that invoke, this is what Christmas means to me. This is Thanksgiving. This is Halloween, right? This is Valentine's Day. We have certain foods. If you're going somewhere else, or if you're having people over to your house, if you're having a holiday meal, always think about bringing food, if you have to go somewhere, that your child will eat. Okay. Because a holiday is not the time to try something new. I really recommend that, because that can be, especially if that is not something your child enjoys. Now, if your child enjoys trying something new, have at it, right? Try all those new dishes that everybody's Googled and looked up new recipes for. But if they don't enjoy that, don't force it during a holiday, because you want to keep it, again, as light and as fun as you can, and maybe try some new foods on a more neutral day, right? A Wednesday during school might be a good day to try something new. You also want your kids, so if they're not going to try something or they don't want to eat something, to practice good manners, to say no thank you. This is a great opportunity for them to practice some of those manners, and they may have multiple opportunities if they're not a big eater to practice this, to say no thank you. Or if they use an AAC device of some kind, they can hit their button of no thank you. Or you can have a card that they hold up, or that they give to someone that says no thank you. So be prepared for whatever their communication mode is. Teach them the sign for no thank you. But if they are going to eat with the group, sometimes just bringing a favorite cup or a plate will make them more comfortable. I feel like I can share that, I think there's many of you out there that would agree with me. I don't like my food to touch. I don't like different food to touch. I am all in favor of the separated plates, right? That each have like almost like the old cafeteria trays. It would be my ideal Thanksgiving plate, where everything has its spot, right? And so if that is true for you or your child, bring those plates with you and let your family know. We're going to bring that plate to keep all the food separate, because that's going to make a much more enjoyable meal for him, right? We don't always have to have exactly the same thing that everybody has. Thinking about, favorite cups or something. Make a plan for when to leave the table. So a lot of times when families get together for, whether it be a birthday party or whatever, and they've had a meal, and then they kind of sit around and they talk. The adults always love to talk, right? We talk for a while, and then we maybe are going to have some dessert in a little bit. But when can your child leave the table? Do they need to stop, or they need to stay until everyone's done eating? Or are they going to, as soon as they're done eating, boom, they can leave, they're out? Don't make that conversation happen right there at the table. Make sure you have the plan ahead of time to say, okay, here's what's reasonable. Because again, this is not a typical family dinner, right? This Easter dinner with the family, with extra people who are coming, this is not your normal everyday meal where you might be trying to get your child to stay at the table for a little bit longer. But at this case, this is the day where maybe we just need to leave to take a break for a while. And you might want to have a little visual or pictures available for good manners or topics of conversation. So you might just want to use a sticky note, or you could have a little index card or something you've already talked about. Hey, what could we talk about at the table? Or write down, please and thank you. Use some good manners today, or whatever it is you want to remind your child of. You could just sit that on the table and then next to them and have it already prepared. So that could be a nice visual, and you can kind of point to that if you need to remind them of what they can say. Now we need to talk about, once we know about all the sensory and we've kind of set the environment and everything, and we've thought about it, we've thought about the day, But now, what are those social expectations on the day? We need to, again, plan ahead. Everything is about planning ahead of time, whether this is months in advance or this is a couple of days in advance. But many of our children need to understand the social expectations of holidays because they're different than every day. So review those expectations. Sometimes we do activities with family and friends, right? It's not, when we talk about family, what is your definition of family? Is it your significant other, your children? Is that your immediate family, or are you always including grandmas and grandpas or aunts and uncles? Or maybe there's some friends of yours that when you say we're getting together with family, but you know what, that best friend that you've had for the last 30 years is also considered family, so they're going to be there as well. What does family and friends mean to you? And then what activities will you be doing all together? Because sometimes we also do things by ourselves, and that's okay too, right? So when we go to these events, what is acceptable for me to do by myself, and what's acceptable or what's really encouraged for me to try to do with some other people? And then this is why we plan ahead, right? Because we want to think about what activities does your child like to do. If you have a child who loves to do crafts, you might need to bring a craft for your child, and then you can invite anybody else that wants to participate to come with you. But you kind of brought something that you know your child's really going to enjoy doing, and that can keep them involved. And maybe there's a favorite game they like to play, a movie, a sport that they like to play. So if it's Thanksgiving, everybody tends to play football. But if your kid's really into a different kind of sport, bring the soccer ball as well. So some people can play football, but maybe sometimes we can play a little bit of soccer as well. We want to think about something called the hidden curriculum rules. So the hidden curriculum rules are the unwritten rules that there's no manual of these. Well, there actually is. There are a few books. If you ever are interested in them, you can Google on Amazon, or you can Google them, or you can look on Amazon, the hidden curriculum rules books. Brenda Smith Miles is one of the main authors of these books. And but they're all those unwritten things. We have there's an old saying, everything I needed to learn I learned in kindergarten. And that's kind of true, because in kindergarten we teach, like, don't eat the glue sticks, right? You need to sit in your chair. But then as we get older, we don't learn about all these other rules. So one of my favorite examples of hidden curriculum rules would be when you go to a bakery, or when you're at Costco and it says free samples. How many samples are you supposed to take? It doesn't specify one sample. It just says free. So sometimes we take one, sometimes at Costco, we take one and we do a lap around the store, and we come back and we get a second one. And that's socially acceptable. When you go on an airplane, many of you may be flying sometime during the holiday season and during some holiday. Who gets the middle armrest? It's not written in the flyer that you have, in the back of or in the front of your chair about all the safety things. Who gets to, is it the first person who gets there that puts their arm down gets to claim that middle armrest? Is it the person in the middle seat gets both middle armrests? What's the rule about that? It's different for everybody. And so our holidays have different hidden curriculum rules. So for Halloween, one of those might be only knock on a door with a porch light on, because universally, I think now it's pretty universal that if your light's on, it means you're possibly there. That you could try. But if lights are off at a house, then I wouldn't try to go and knock on the door for them to see what's going on. You should only, when you trick or treat, go to the house only one time. So it's not socially acceptable for, if that one, especially that one house who's giving away the really good full-size candy bars that everybody's on the lookout for. You can't go 5 times to that house, right? You go one time and then you move on to the next house. So we need to work on these social rules, right? At Christmas time, when giving a gift, it's considered bad manners to tell the person how much the gift cost, or especially if you're regifting it. Now, we know people regift gifts. That's in society, we know that's going to happen. But we don't talk about that. We don't tell, especially the person we're giving it to, hey, I was given this last year and I'm regifting it to you. So you want to prepare your kids, because our kids, our kids are really, really good at telling on us sometimes. They're really good about sharing those holiday secrets that we don't want anybody to know. We don't want people to know that everything is crammed into that closet. That's why we're not going to open that door. And thinking about St. Patrick's Day, this is one of my favorites. People tease people all the time about getting pinched if you don't wear green, but it's not okay to pinch people that you don't know if they're not wearing green. That's an important thing to teach your kids, especially if they're really excited about holidays and at school. That's going to be the day that you might get the phone call that your child pinched another kid because they weren't wearing green. And I have worked with some kids in the past where I think they would have a pretty good argument to say, but that's the tradition. And I was following tradition, right? So, because we have these misunderstandings sometimes, we want to make sure that our kids understand hidden curriculum rules, because sometimes when you break those rules, there can be some significant consequences. One way to teach some of these rules and to teach some of these expectations for our kids is to use a short narrative or a story about what to expect, like how you might behave, how people will feel, how other people will behave. And so those are called social stories or social narratives. They're written in first person at the child's level. So if they often include pictures, but if your child is just an independent reader, then you don't have to worry about the pictures. You can just type something out. I've written stories on sticky notes before for some kids. So it doesn't have to be anything fancy, but there are many social stories, especially for holidays, available for free on the internet. You can Google for them. The Indiana Resource Center for Autism, we have many that they're Word docs. And so you can download them and you can personalize them. That's why we kept them in Word doc form instead of as a locked PDF so that you can't make changes to it. So I want to share some of these ideas with you. So one of my favorite places to go, especially if you have younger kids, if you have even up through probably any age, I would say, if they need more of a cartoon type picture and simple sentences. Okay, so that's the level, but I'm not going to specify an age on that because anybody can benefit from those if that is their comprehension level and that's their level of engagement. Autism Little Learners is a wonderful website to go to. And if you go to it, I put the link up there for autismlittlelearners.com. You click on the word across the top, it'll say blog. So you want to click on blog, and then you want to go to social stories, and that will open up a whole bunch of ideas for social stories for all year round. Okay. But she does have a lot of holiday ones available. For a lot of them are for free. Some of them you have to pay a few dollars for, and you can print them off at home. So here's an example of one. This one is for free, and it's for visiting Santa. So this is what it looks like. I'm going to show you the first 3 pages of it. So going to see Santa. I'm going to visit Santa. I might need to wait in line when I visit Santa. And I would even suggest that you might want to also take a picture of your mall or wherever you go to visit Santa. And if you do, then, kind of look at that picture from the previous year so the kids can remember, oh yeah, this is what it looked like. This was the line we stood in. And then it says Santa usually has helpers with him. And then when it's my turn, I can sit on Santa's lap or stand by him. And then I can give Santa my letter. And it goes on. There's a few more pages to it. So you can print this off, make it a little book for your kids to look at. And I would read it, a few times, as many times as your kid actually wants to, so that they can kind of get familiar with the routine and those expectations. Here's an example of one that can be found under holidays and celebrations on IRCA's visual supports resources. And so this one was written for Easter. So it just has it has a couple of sentences and then a little picture to kind of help with comprehension there. And that can be, again, personalized. These are Word docs, so they can be personalized for your child and your family's needs. Also think about songs. There's actually a lot of holiday songs that get again, set the mood for us, but some of them are more simple for kids because we also want to kind of teach them about what's about to happen. And so this is an example of a Thanksgiving food song. I apologize for those of you who are going to have this stuck in your head for the rest of the day. I feel like it's one of those catchy ones that I start to sing around the holidays now. But I want to give you a taste of it because if you have a child who really likes music, and are really likes to make rhymes or something, and that is comforting to them, this is a great little tune that you could listen to it a few times and you'll have it memorized. But you can change the words to the food that your family will have for Thanksgiving. You can, make it your own. But the tune is pretty easy to catch on, and then you can change the words. So I want to give you just a snippet of this, and I apologize. There is a commercial at the beginning, but then I think that will be over here in just a second. So let's see.
Every Acorns customer has potential.
Can you hear this, Lisa?
This is one of them.
Dear yes. Yes,
okay.
I can.
Have this cloud hanging over.
Perfect.
You might turn it up a little bit if you can.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Turkey, potatoes covered in bread. I like corn, I like stuffing, and I like pumpkin pie. I like biscuits and apple cider, and that's the reason why I say thank you for the food we eat. Thank you for the friends we meet. Each November we come together and say thank you for Thanksgiving Day.
Okay, I wasn't going to sing it, so I wanted you to listen to the video, but I think it's a pretty simple, catchy tune, and it's going to repeat itself, and it says, let's sing it faster and let's sing it slower, so you can play around with that. But if you've got 5 or 10 minutes in the car ride to school over the next couple of weeks before Thanksgiving, although I say couple of weeks, but probably Thanksgiving's going to be here tomorrow before we know it. Maybe you just want to listen to that song. Like I said, change the words, have some fun with it, getting kids ready for, hey, the Thanksgiving holiday is about to come. And really, Thanksgiving is oftentimes a lot about food. Even if you don't eat any of the food, you might be seeing it or smelling it and things. So that's another way to explain about the holidays. Nope, let's move on. Okay, some specific tips for Halloween. I know Halloween is over, but like I said, some of this we need to prepare for the following year. And, this is a time where I'm going to encourage everybody to, if you're watching this video right now and it's November and you're like, oh, Halloween just passed, go back to InSource's YouTube channel in, let's say, August, watch this video again and start preparing for Halloween. So you'll be ready for next October. But some tips about Halloween is we really have to emphasize that it is pretend, right? That can be a scary time for some kids. I'll never forget one time I dressed up as a doctor thinking, I was like I don't know if I was an older teenager, maybe it was even college, dressed up as a doctor because I thought, that's a easy costume to put together. And someone came to the door and they said, oh, are you coming or going? And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, oh, from work. Did we catch you after work? I'm like, I'm not a doctor. I just dressed up like one for Halloween. So I never again have used that costume. Now I tend to lean more towards the Mike or Sully from Monsters, Inc. costume that I have. But so we want to think about, remembering this is pretend, right? And then make a trick or treat plan. You might want to make a schedule. You might want to make a map of your neighborhood for where you're going. Plan those times with family and friends. Like, are we going to get together? Who's coming? What's going to happen? Are we going to go early? Is your child better to go earlier, maybe before it gets so dark? I know sometimes we have a nice window of opportunity where some of our kids, they can start at 5:30 or 6 or something. Hopefully that's still a little bit of sunlight out. While you're going trick-or-treating. Practice wearing those costumes. There's lots and lots of textures involved. How many of you have had the experience where you've bought a costume and then your child puts it on and they were so excited about it, it's their favorite character, and then they cannot stand to be wearing it for more than 30 seconds and they start peeling it off. because you didn't realize the texture of the costume. I talked with, another family that said, we had to reorder 3 times to get the costume like to fit the right way for the sizing and things. So you want to make sure you give yourself plenty of time to get those costumes ready. Make sure your kids are comfortable wearing them. You might want to role play, practice, knocking on a door, hitting a doorbell, waiting for the person to come. And what do we say? And then have a candy plan. And I'm sure this is for every family, right? How much are we allowed to eat? What are there so many pieces? When do we eat the candy? Do we eat it as we're trick-or-treating? Because sometimes if you eat a piece of candy in between every house, then you're going to end up with an empty candy bucket when you get home because you've eaten it all as you're trick-or-treating. So what is your plan for all that yummy sugary candy? And then, okay, so writing a to-do list for the event. So here again, these are super simple strategies. They can make a big difference for families and for kids, but they're very easy. So grab a piece of paper. You can write it on any piece of paper. Add whatever information is important to the child and just cross it off as you're going so you can kind of follow it along. So for this child, here was our to-do list. You're going to put on the costume. You're going to go to Tim's house. You're going to go to Sue's house. You're going to go to Jack's house. So we're going to go to 3 houses. We're not going to try to do the whole neighborhood. We're just going to go to 3 houses. We can eat 3 pieces of candy during the evening, okay? And then we're going to come home and then I'm going to pass out the candy. So I'm not saying you have to go home and, go to bed or something, but I just, that would be enough right now. And so that's our plan. And if you're with other people, you can kind of say, hey, here's our plan. We're going to leave after a couple of houses, but you guys, can continue on or something. By having these plans ahead of time, it reduces that whole back and forth of, I'm not going to say to my child during this moment, do you feel like going home? Some of your kids will be fine with that. Some of them at this moment you can, but you know your child and you know that some of them are going to be like, oh, but they really want to stay with their friends. But man, you can tell they've hit the limit, right? Because it can be socially and overwhelming, a challenging time to go trick-or-treating. So if you just have a plan like that, like so many houses, and then we're going to stop, we don't have to have that back and forth conversation of negotiation. Your child, you're giving them an out, even though they may not be asking for it at the moment, but your kids, and some of them, they want to be cool in front of the other kids. They don't want to say I'm ready to go home. But if the schedule says it's time to go home because you got to go pass out the candy at our house, that's an important job. Then you've given them kind of that permission and that out to be able to go back home. So there's something called video modeling too. It's where and now with our phones, we always have them. We can always take a video anywhere. So I want to show the example of video modeling for trick-or-treating. But you can video model for anything. So if you have siblings that want to role play and you can videotape it and have your child watch it, you can have friends do this. You can have other family members, maybe, a grandma and grandpa, if you're going to go to their house for Thanksgiving or whatever holiday that's coming up, you could say, hey, can you videotape you sitting at the table and kind of what, or if we're having a buffet, videotape where the food's going to be and how we go through the buffet or something like that. You can do lots of things with videos and share them back and forth. So here's an example of some younger kids that are learning to trick or treat.
Hey guys, happy Halloween. Today I'm going to show you how you can go trick or treat. So the first thing you need to do is that you need your costume and a bucket. And then when you head out your house, you go to your neighbor's house and say a trick or treat after you knock. And when your neighbor gives you candy, you say thank you and happy Halloween. And then you go to another house until it is time to go.
Happy Halloween. Thank you. Happy Halloween.
They're so cute. So that's how easy it can be to show kids and use some video modeling. One thing I would say, and so I found that video just by doing a YouTube search, right? So I just searched video modeling trick-or-treating. You can search for anything that, there might be on YouTube, or you can create your own, okay? The one thing that Gabe did mention there that I wanted to say was, he said, and then you're going to go home after you trick or treat. But we need to remember that some of our kids have difficulty with what does finished look like. They want to keep going and they're having so much fun. They don't want to stop. And you're like, we've been doing this for an hour and a half. We've got to stop, right? So that's another reason why the to-do list and the having some kind of visual support can help to end it. So maybe if you know the path you're going to take, if you've drawn that map of houses and you say, you know what, when you get to this house, that's the last house because you know that's the last street in your neighborhood or something. So giving them just a clear end spot will help with that transition to let them know that it's time for Halloween to be over. Because really, when are you finished with trick-or-treating? Is it when a certain time comes and you can get as many houses as you can until 8:30, and then at 8:30 you're coming in or we're stopping? Is it after you go to 10 houses? Is it after you go to Bob's house? When does it end? Is it when your pillowcase is full of candy and that's when you need to stop? So be real clear with some of those expectations and some of the rules that you expect your child to follow during these holidays. Okay, let's talk about gift giving for a minute. So whether it is during a birthday, during Christmas, any other time you might be celebrating a holiday and gifts are included, that can be sometimes a little challenging. So you might want to practice opening gifts because we know that, some of our kids are shakers. How many of you are shakers of those presents? You wonder what's inside of it, but that we learn that sometimes that's a little dangerous, right? Because if there's something glass or expensive in that gift, you don't want to be shaking it around. So how do we handle gifts appropriately, right? How do we open them? Sometimes it's really challenging for the kids to open them, right? So giving them little tips on you pull the paper at the seam or something like that. We want to practice taking turns opening gifts maybe or passing gifts out, right? Give phrases so that your children are used to saying thank you or whatever's appropriate for that moment. What do you say and do if you don't like the gift, right? So if you open a pair of socks and you don't like those socks or it's the wrong texture, you don't like how something feels like a shirt or something, what can you say? You say thank you. You don't say that you don't like it. And then know that we're going to take it back and we'll return it to the store and you can get a different shirt. But there's all those social experiences that, kids, sometimes they just need to be directly taught, right? So we can't get upset when our kids say something if they're telling the truth. We just need to teach them socially, like what's appropriate for your family. Some families, it might be absolutely fine to say, I don't like the texture of this. And then, they'll say, fine, here's the receipt. You can go exchange it for something different. But we just want to make sure we know how we prepare our kids for how to navigate those situations. And then also when to expect to get a gift and when it's not expected that you'll get a gift. So if it is your cousin's birthday party, the expectation is it's not your birthday, so you won't be getting a gift. Only your cousin will be getting gifts. And then so that expectation is already set, and there won't be some tears or some surprises when they say, "Oh, we don't have any gifts for you to open." Who gets to blow out the candles? This is another one I'm thinking about birthday parties. Who gets to blow out the candles on the birthday cake? It's the birthday person's responsibility to do that, unless they ask you to help. But we need to remember, even though we know you love to blow out birthday candles, this is not your time, right? You want to think about as you get older, those expectations change. So children going to families' houses, yes, where all the kids get Christmas gifts or something. But then as they get a little bit older as teenagers, they might get cards with some money in it, but that's not going to be a gift to open. And then as you become an adult, all of a sudden we stop exchanging gifts for the adults. And so those expectations change over time, and you want to prepare your child for that because they could, they hadn't thought of that before, right? They didn't realize that with that card, there won't be a gift anymore. And maybe they really, really enjoy opening the boxes. And so we need to let them know that there isn't going to be a box to open this year. So if you have some kids who need to kind of practice some of those social routines for gifts, we have this one on the IRCA's website, and it is for holiday gifts, right? So here's a social story all about opening gifts, saying thank you. How do we respond to things, okay? We always need to be practicing, right? We're always teaching socially appropriate behaviors throughout the year. Social skills can be modeled both at home and in the community. And this is especially important for kids to learn social expectations and routines to help them generalize, right, to different places. So we don't just say please and thank you in our dinner table. We also say please and thank you when we're out at restaurants or when we're in different places. If your child uses some other form of, mode of communication, whether it be sign language, AAC devices, cards, picture cards that they're using, making sure you can practice those at restaurants. You can practice those at your friend's house, and just make sure you have that available so that they do have their communication with them all the time. So the last thing I want to talk about is checking in, right? Because the holidays can become overwhelming, and we need to remember that we've got to check in and see how am I doing right now. So thinking about during the actual event. So for this picture example, this is for during Thanksgiving dinner, right? Thanksgiving at the moment. It's a first then reinforcement card. So first we're going to eat dinner, then you can have your iPad. So the kids know, okay, I don't really want to sit at the table with all these people, with all these foods and with all these smells, but I'm going to be able to do this, have my dinner, and then I'm going to get some iPad time. So I'm going to make sure that the reinforcement, the then, is going to be really popular for my child, or very motivating for them to do something that's maybe a little bit harder for them to do on an everyday basis. We want to make sure that we have an exit plan, okay? So what will finished look like, right? Sometimes we go places and we know when our kids have hit the wall, but we might be able to say, hey, we're planning on leaving, at 8:30 tonight, and that's great. But sometimes we need to have an emergency backup plan just in case. So what does finished look like? When is it time to leave? And what's the emergency plan going to be, right? So we plan on this. We plan it's time to go home at 8:30. But if you start to see maybe there's some certain stemming that might start happening, or you notice your child starts to rock a lot more, and that is a tell for you that they're getting really overstimulated. You've done all the things you can do, but you just feel like we've hit the wall. Okay, the emergency plan is we say, thank you so much for coming, we're going to leave. Or maybe one parent or someone takes the child and they go on home, and someone else is going to drive, or someone drives them home or whatever, and the other people can stay, but we know a couple people are going to go ahead and leave and drive home, and we'll figure out rides and stuff. But you got to have an exit plan. Sometimes using a countdown, though, can help if you do need to leave and your child's not ready to leave, right? That's wonderful. They're having a great time. They're having so much fun, but you know what? It's time. We got to go. So have a countdown ready, right? So here are some pictures with the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then we're finished, and then it's time to go. We can always set timers. There's lots of visual timers available. Some people can carry them in your moms, or carry them in our purses, right? And so we can always pull out that visual timer and say, we got 40 more minutes. And then when timer goes off, it's going to be time to go. So give your kids warnings that, hey, those 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 doesn't necessarily represent minutes. It just means I'm starting to count down. So maybe you have a half an hour left, and every, 3 to 5 minutes, you start taking a number off. So the kids start to see that our time is kind of coming to an end, right? But it's not necessarily directly related to minutes. There needs to be some kind of warning, like heads up, there's a change. So how many people have planned some holiday events, no matter, again, we're talking across the board here all year long. Let's go back to Labor Day. We're going to have some kind of picnic or barbecue, and it is raining outside. It is torrential downpour. So all of a sudden we have a change ahead. We have a change in plans, right? So what is your plan? Because your child's looking forward to that. You've spent all this time preparing for it, but that's life. We know it happens, right? So just let them know there has been a change, and here's what we're going to do instead. And use all those strategies, like making the to-do list, giving them a sequence of events so they can start to process that morning. So when you go to the friend's house that you're going to end up eating at and doing indoor activities at their house, they're prepared for that, okay? And remember that the beauty of having all the technology available to us is that we can take pictures of all these visual supports that I'm sure many, many of you are familiar with using with your children. So those are portable, right? So take pictures of all those visual supports. I tell families all the time, ask your teachers to take pictures and send to you of the visual supports that your children are using at school. They've already been taught what those mean, how to use them, and so you can use them at home too. So if your child has been working on deep breathing, because we a lot of times use a visual support when we want kids to take some deep breaths, because what do kids do when you tell them to take some deep breaths? They go, and they hyperventilate in front of our eyes. So we teach kids to smell the flower and blow out the candle. Or maybe it's a holiday and you've got a picture of a cookie and a plate and you want them to smell the yummy cookie, but oh, we have to blow on the cookie because it's hot. So we smell it and then we blow it. And so we're breathing in and we're blowing out. So have a visual support of when you want your child to take a few deep breaths, and then you can pull up your phone and show them the picture, and they can either point to the smelling and blowing out of the candle will slow them down. But having visual supports handy is very important and helpful. So you want to be ready to revise that plan. So this is an example of how we do what we got to do in the moment. Okay. So this picture, I will tell you, is 10 years old. All right. So my family was at an activity, an event at Chuck E. Cheese. Okay. And so there's a lot of people, a lot of kids, and my daughter and myself started to get very overwhelmed by so much that was happening at Chuck E. Cheese, right? And I thought, what we got to have, I need a plan. I need an exit strategy. What's going to happen? So this is literally the paper plate that I took. I don't still have the plate, but I have the picture 10 years later. And I took the plate and I turned it over and I drew, number 1, we're going to ride the train. Number 2, you're going to ride the horse. Number 3, play the apple game. So I had my daughter kind of pick out some things that I knew she'd like to do. I gave her a couple choices. And then, because my husband wanted to stay, because, this was social activity with our friends and things, so we didn't want to leave right away. But number 4, we were going to have some Dippin' Dots ice cream. And then after the ice cream, we were going to leave. It was going to be time for us to say, hey, it's nice to see all of you. It was time to go. After we made this plan on the paper, we were able to kind of, as the 3 of us as a family, were able to go through it. And we had a lovely time. There was not a meltdown at the end of the day. We said, we had a good time with friends. And if she wanted to play an extra game, I'm sure we would have let her. But I think if I remember back 10 years ago, I think it was like, yeah, we're good. We're going to go ahead and leave after the ice cream. But that is how quickly you can make a plan. And if your child is used to using schedules and to-do lists, then that will make perfect sense to them. So if you have a napkin, if you have a Kleenex, if you have a scrap piece of paper, you can draw anything. Paper. There's usually paper plates aplenty during holidays. So grab the back of that paper plate and start writing on it and make a plan right there. And then remember to celebrate in your own way. These are holidays that are special to each of us in our own special ways. So it's perfectly okay to adapt or simplify traditions, right? Smaller gatherings at times, shorter visits, quieter celebrations. And those can change from year to year. That doesn't mean it's always going to be like this. You can make it what it needs to be at whatever time you are in your journey with your child. Focus on the moments that matter the most for you and your child's comfort and joy, and not what others expect, right? If I love this little picture of this boy wearing the birthday hat, and he is just happy as can be. I envision him over on the side dancing with his hat. He's so happy. He may not want to play the organized games that the other kids are doing, but he is enjoying that birthday hat and he's enjoying being out there. And if we can, be an inclusive and create more inclusive environments for our neurodiverse family members, loved ones, friends, children, everyone, then I hope that you will find a way to look back and say that was a wonderful holiday. That was a wonderful celebration. So take care of yourselves. Now I'm going to talk to the parents for a second. Take care of yourself too during the holidays. And sometimes we get so overwhelmed in all the things of the holidays, the pressure to decorate, the pressure to do all these new recipes and all the food and all the things. But parenting during the holidays can be very overwhelming. So you need to build in times when you can have your moments of rest and get some support when you need it. Ask for help. Say, I don't have the energy right now to do this and to put up all of the garland around the house, and that's okay. Gather with, if you have an autism support group that you know of. Indiana Resource Center for Autism, we host one once a month for parents of children with autism. Join that. Attend sensory friendly events. Do wherever you can be with families who understand where you're at. You can share ideas and things. Seek that out. And if you would ever need some support, I know that there's lots of organizations in Indiana that are there here. We are here to support you. So you can contact InSource and they can, refer you on. Call Indiana Resource Center for Autism. If we can't meet your needs, we will try to find other ways or other suggestions for you. Of ways that you can get contact with the people that will meet your needs. And remember, it's okay to say no to events that don't work for you or your energy level. If you're super tired, you might just say, you know what, sometimes, for moms, some days, a mom's idea is everyone else can go and I'm going to hang at home. How many moms out there, or maybe a dad, I don't want to just single out the mom. So any adult out there who has a house full of energy and all the people doing things at Halloween, how many of you want to just stay on the porch and hand out the candy and let everybody else go do the trick-or-treating, right? Give yourselves 5 minutes where hopefully you can just sit and relax that evening. So make sure you're taking care of yourself, especially during the holidays. And then after the holiday, you want to allow time to decompress and gradually return to your normal routines, right? So we need some recovery days after the holiday for rest and decompression, right? Our kids need that. We as adults need that. You might want to build that into their schedule, right? Don't plan a whole lot of things on the day after when you get back. Try to make it a gradual thing too, because when you have a house that's all decorated and then all of a sudden it just disappears, that's sad. Sometimes, we're really loving that tree. We might need to leave it up for a few more weeks. We might need to put on the calendar what day the tree is going to come down and then maybe have some special activities around that, because that's going to be a sad day when we have to say goodbye to the Christmas tree this year. So think about recovery days, and then talk or use visuals to review the holiday, right? What went well, and then what do we want to change for next year? So many a times a parent will say, we tried this. Don't think we're going to do that again. But this, on the flip side, we'll say we tried this and it was great. And I don't know why we didn't think about this sooner. So take a minute, stop and think and review the day or the event or the holiday and process that, whether it's you're doing that with your significant other, with your grandparents, with the family, with your child, whoever it is. Just kind of review how it went and celebrate your child's successes, big or small. Right? Maybe they did try a new food at Thanksgiving. Maybe they did open a present for the first time. They were actually engaged in coming up with the group. If you were sitting all around and exchanging presents, they joined us for the first time. That's a huge win. So celebrate what is a success for your child, and that will be defined very differently for every family. You want to also, you can create like a holiday debrief. So these are just some ideas if you need some questions to think about and to ask yourselves. And if you're doing this with your child, you can do this using photographs. You can use it doing drawings. You can just have a conversation. It's whatever level your child is at. You can adjust this accordingly. So what went well this holiday? But that might be a really broad question to ask some kids. So you can be more specific. Did you like when we watched the parade? Did you like going to the parade? Was that music too loud? Or what would you like to change next time? What moments, and then think about for yourself, what moments did your child enjoy the most? Any sensory or social supports that helped? or what do you want to remember to do for next year? So thinking about through those, those questions as you're, take 10 minutes one day, and sit down after when you finally like, whew, had a break, go back, fast forward this video, go back to these questions, let them spur your thoughts for a few minutes, and debrief about the holidays. So, in conclusion, we want to remember that we need to prepare early and visually for the holidays. And this is all year long, from New Year's Day in January all the way to New Year's Eve in December. We have, so every month it seems like it has a holiday, right? So prepare early and visually. Review those expectations and the schedule. Make sure you have schedules in place for your kids, to-do lists. What are those expectations going to be in whatever form you need them to be, visually, written on your phone, watching YouTube videos. If you need assistance, I know part of my job is to travel the state of Indiana, and I'm in lots and lots of school districts, and I'm supporting teachers in schools. And I know that they work on these things in their classrooms. They all will acknowledge holidays that are coming up. And so if you need some visual supports or social stories around the holidays that are coming up, let your teachers know. Many of them already have these in place, and they would be more than happy, I'm sure, to share them with you. You want to plan for and pack those sensory and regulation needs, right? Get your backpacks ready to go. Have your kids dropping things in. Sometimes you never know it's kind of interesting what you might open that backpack and find, but that is something that they wanted to bring and it made them happy, right? Know the exit plan. We sometimes need to step out, whether it be for a few minutes or whether we just need to end the day. So know what your exit plan is and be ready to have fun. As much of this preparation that goes into it, sometimes the best laid preparation plans will end up being the most fun, even though it kind of put some work in at the beginning. Sometimes winging it isn't always going to be a fun time for some people, and you have to know the people in your family, and you have to be able to meet everyone's needs, and how can you compromise or how can you adjust accordingly so that it is an enjoyable time for everyone. So best wishes. Here's our website from the Indiana Resource Center for Autism. We wish you happy holidays all year round for all the holidays that you celebrate. If you would ever need anything, I've got my email on this presentation at the very beginning, so I know the recording might be out, but you can always find us at the Indiana Resource Center for Autism. So with that, I will pass it back to the ladies from InSource that are so amazing. So thank you so much.
Amy, thank you so much for all this great practical information. Sometimes I watch a webinar and I enjoy it, but I don't walk away with practical steps. But you have given us such wonderful practical steps to help our kids and ourselves as parents and adults, because we also might feel overwhelmed or tired or just not know the best way to organize things in ourselves. So thank you so much. We do not have any questions in the chat here. And again, you may someday be watching this on our YouTube channel, and we hope that you will take advantage of all of these resources, and make sure that you also scan the QR code that is at the beginning, and again at the end, so that you can fill out the survey, and you can share your input with us, because we are state and federally funded, and we take those very seriously, and we are also required to do that for each of our trainings. So I want to thank you again for joining InSource for our webinars, and Amy Gaffney from our IRCA, who just gave us such a wonderful plethora of information and ideas. Jill, I will turn it over to you at this time.
Thank you very much, Lisa, and thank you, Amy, for being here today. Here is our QR code that is posted. We did not have any questions out on our Facebook Live, but please, if you are watching this in replay, your information is very much needed in this QR code, so please make sure that you do fill that out for us. you will be able to go back and listen to this webinar. It'll probably be a week or so before we get it back out there. We're usually pretty quick, but give us a few days. And yeah, I mean, Amy, I cannot tell you. My son's 28, and I'm just sitting here. I've got a whole list of stuff that I'm going to be using this year.
It's good for all ages, right? You know, littlest ones to, you know, well into mature adult age.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thank you so much.
Very
You know,
welcome.
every time you're here, I learn something new. So thank you again
Thank
for being
you.
here. I don't see any questions that have been posted at this time. Again, I want to thank my co-host Lisa Paddock for being here with me, and we are starting to wind down for the year. So actually, we only have 4 webinars that are left in the year of 2025. So stay tuned for what's coming up for the rest of those 4. Ladies, have a wonderful day, and I will see everybody in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks.